Welcome back to my Handlebars training course. I'm Rich Finelli and this is video number 4 about the each helper. Besides exploring the built-in helper each, we'll also try to further understand what context refers to in the handlebars.compile method, which we actually touched on quite a bit in the previous video. Here's the JS we left off with. And I want to review what we were doing here. First, we were creating a variable called character template that stored our character template HTML, which is really just this list item right here that has our handlebars tags. Next, we were creating another variable that uses the handlebars.compile method, and we pass that our template, our character template. And finally, what we're doing is we're using jQuery's.html method again. Instead of getting HTML, we're saying, okay, well, we want to land our HTML in this character list container, which is this UL right here. And we're giving it our compiled character template, which we learned takes a context. And what we're giving it is cast.characters2, which is this object up here, cast.characters2, 0, 1, 2, which ends up with Brienne of Tarth. And if we were to go over to our browser, we can see we have Brienne of Tarth here. But what we want is we want a list of all of our characters. So we want to loop over our object that we have. We want to loop over this object and spit out all of our characters. Handlebars has built-in helpers, as they're called, that allow you to do useful programming things like a loop. So we're going to explore, like we said, the each helper. So that's easy enough. Where we want to add that is we can just modify our template, and right over top of the list item, we're going to add in each. And we'll close that each. This is where we want our loop to stop. So we're just going to basically loop over our object over here, and for each of these, we're going to spit out this list item. We need to kind of give it some type of context. So kind of the same way we passed context down here, now we're kind of passing that context here. So we're going to give it the characters property, which really corresponds directly to this array. So as we kind of use these tags for name, we're going to really kind of use this characters property inside of our each helper. Now, because we're kind of instead of drilling right into cast.characters2, which is Brienne of Tarth, now we're kind of making our context farther out. It's all the way out here, really. Now it's this. So we need to adjust the context we're passing our handlebars.compile method. So instead of doing characters2, we want to shorten that up to just be cast. So now we're just giving it this object here, and then we're using the each helper to say, okay, focus in on the characters array, and then you can loop over this object and spit it out as this list item. And it works. So we can see all of our characters are just listed out. So there's a few other things you can do in here inside of the each block. Is you can do something like index if you want to spit out the index, and you can spit out first if you want to know which one's the first. So we could do that, and we can see our index 0. First is true for Jon Snow, first is false for Tyrion and everybody else, and their index also shows. So that can be useful at times. And like you can do first, you can also do last. And now we can see Jon Snow is the first, but he's not the last. However, Sandor Clegane, although not the first, is the last, and that shows up as true. Another thing I want to just point out is if you had a much simpler array, so let me replace the array with really just a list. There's, it's not an array of objects, just an array of strings. And let's simplify this here as well. Instead of using name, well, what do we use, for that? There is no property to key off of. We can use this. So we get the value of that item that we're iterating over. So that can be useful for sure. Let's back it up a little bit. And we'll get rid of that stuff too. And that's how you can iterate over a list using the built-in each helper in Handlebars.